which comes from Nora. Thank you, Nora. Father Simon and the Confessional Collective. This is a confession that goes all the way back to 1957.
Wow.
Positively olden times. Sterling Moss, Andy Capp, rock and roll, Anthony Eden, Harold Macmillan. Gunfight at the OK Corral is at the movies, and who knows what was on TV, because we didn't have one. Was that Burt Lancaster?
Gunfight at the OK Corral, I think so, yeah.
Kirk Douglas. Anyway, irrelevant for actually.
Yes.
It's just placing us in 1957. What we did have, though, was a domestic incident. Our front doorstep was in a bit of a state. For some reason, it was turning and changing colour. From a rather distinguished slate grey to a rather disgusting, suspiciously yellow colour. It was getting worse. No matter how regularly it was cleaned, it was yellower and yellower and yellower. You know the way people used to get nicotine fingers?
Oh, dear.
It was like that. My mother would hide by the curtains waiting to see who the offender was. Everyone who walked down our street, even the Reverend Matthews, was suspected. and Major Alderton. They were peered at with deep suspicion. Quite why they would want to discolour our step was not the issue. She was obsessed with who the culprit was. Meanwhile, the stain kept spreading. She was obviously missing something. My mother became convinced that our neighbours, the Roonies, were the offenders. This was because, one, they were generally a poor sort, ruffians really.
I see.
They had a suspicious look about them. I know you shouldn't judge people by the way they look, but you could back then. And
but you could back then, right?
and you could just tell. You could tell they were up to no good.
Right, I see.
More precisely, second reason, their black Labrador, Tanker, was a hooligan dog and poorly trained. Prone to humping any passing stranger and leaving its messages everywhere.
Lovely.
He growled, he weed, he pooed, as though there was no tomorrow. So obviously, my mum believed that Tanker was responsible for our stained step.
Okay.
She accused Tanker's owner, Babs Cardwell, of allowing her dog to do... Babs Cardwell was, I think, living with the Roonies.
Right.
It's different times.
Okay, they clearly were.
Different times.
Who knows?
Allowing her dog to do what it wanted on our step. She pointed at the yellow step. Look, she shouted. I'm not doing the voice again. Look what your dog is doing. Well, Babs was furious, denied Tanker was the guilty party, and never spoke to my mum again. For years, they would pass in the street or in the co-op and look the other way, tut and huff and suck their teeth. I feel now that I've reached the grand old age of 75, says Nora. It's time to confess. This is because all the other parties are in fact dead. So,
yeah, now that works.
It does help.
That's
doesn't
fine.
it, if you're going to send in
That's what
something?
we like now, yeah.
You see, post-war, it was commonplace to give cod liver oil on a daily basis. In the dim and distant past, this was administered by the spoonful and not in capsule form. And just before leaving for school, I had to line up and my mum dolloped a spoonful of this loathsome stuff in my mouth. I absolutely hated it. Nowadays, it's a trendy supplement to take, along with St. John's wort and St. Agnes's verruca, shaved on your rocket salad and double vanilla toffee macchiatos. But in 1957, I hated this stuff with a passion. And once I had my mouthful, I rushed out of the door on my way to school and I spat it out on our step. Hence the discoloration.
Wow,
I should have said,
who knew?
should have given a warning for people.
Yes, but never mind.
This went on for quite some time, Father Simon, and I thought I got away with it. But then came Tanker, Babs, and my mum, and the Roonies, and all of that. As a result, I had to keep the cod liver oil in my mouth for longer. In fact, I had to wait until I was outside number 45. And I would spit it into their hyacinths. I still feel guilty about this action. I seek forgiveness from Tanker, poor dog who was accused, my poor mum who had to clean up the awful mess, my next-door neighbour, and Babs, who was accused of not controlling a dog, although actually that was totally true. Eventually we moved house and I never had to see any of them again, but as I said, they're all dead. So Surprisingly, the guilt lives on. Hopefully you'll be able to use this confession from this old age listener, says Nora. Well, Nora wins. Exactly, we've done that. We have done that because we've gone back to 1957, a rock and roll confession about a dog, a step, and cod liver oil.
Yes.
But you can buy nice little supplements. Everyone thinks, it's the Mediterranean lifestyle. But back in 1957, thank you. I'll spit that on the step. Sister Susie.
Well, I do feel for you, Nora, because that was just making me feel a bit ill thinking about drinking cod liver oil. Not something I'd be interested in. However, I just can't forgive you because that poor black Labrador tanker that got the blame, it's just not very fair. And the hyacinth, the number 45, bet they died as well.
Probably.
So, not forgiven from me, Nora. I'm really sorry.
Brother Matthew.
Well, I think Tanker was probably a bit of a bad sort, and if he wasn't doing that, he was probably doing something else. So no harm done there. And did no one else see this daughter spitting the oil out on the step? No one else thought that's a bit odd. Every time she comes out the door, she's spitting oil on the step. How bizarre. It's definitely forgiven. It's so well written. That's the reason it's getting forgiven. Very well written confession. Well done, Nora.
Plus everyone else is dead. So
they're all dead. They're all